So everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend, my partner, Ari Melber. How you feeling, brother?
I'm all right. It's great to be with you. I've interviewed you, and now the tables have turned.
Turn, right? Tell me about it. I love it, though. And it's good, though, because I appreciate you having me on the show, and I watch what you do, and it's just like, when you shot me out on IG, everybody hit me like, uh-oh, he had it again. So it's like, you invited to all the cookouts, by the way. You just let me know which one you want to pull up at when this pandemic is over. But I just appreciate the love, and I appreciate, you being a supporter of what I do, and also bringing me into your world, and letting me speak for my culture. So shout out to you for that, and thank you for stopping by the podcast. And so Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. It's been a minute. And it sounds like you got a lot of things going, but before we get into that, I just want to start, and this is this is random order. So there's a lot of things that's going on in this world right now, and especially our country. And what do you think the state of our country is right now? Like, what do you think is, like, in layman's terms? Like, tell me what you see so I can tell you what I think. You know what I'm saying?
We are living through this tremendous change and a very angry and racist backlash to the change. So both things are true. Okay. Way more people stood up for change in November, and then I don't have to tell you, again in Georgia.
Correct.
And that is numerically larger than what is still a large and emergency crisis for the United States, which is this racist insurrection.
Right.
You used to be, if you said insurrection a few years back, you sounded fringe. That's literally what it is. And as you know, a lot of people have warned about this for a long time, whether we can see clearly what's going on in America. So I think both things are true. I mean, we're speaking here on a Monday coming out of Wednesday's terrorism, Wednesday's attacks.
Right.
And
and you would label it an attack, terrorism? You would label it that?
Well, some of it was speech, some of it was march, some of it was violence, some of it was violence perpetuated with a political goal to terrorize. So some of it looks like terrorism. Now, as a lawyer, I could tell you everyone is legally innocent until proven guilty. Everyone has their rights.
Correct.
But the crimes we saw range from trespassing to what you would charge on was murder, attempted murder, and potentially terror. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets real once people actually get hurt. Well, we're kind of jumping around. Since you said it like that, what would one want to? What would one's goal be to even incite something like that? Like, what you think is a fear tactic? And if it is, like, do you think that was going to change the ballots and the way people saw the votes and the recounts and the changing of offices? Like, how does that work?
I think the two main things were overthrowing the election and this racist backlash. Overthrowing the election, you don't need a lawyer or a journalist. You just see it. You just see you have an incumbent president, Donald Trump, who doesn't concede, doesn't accept the reality, and is doing a bunch of different things. Whether they all cross the line or not may be a legal question, but he's doing a bunch of different things to try to overturn the election and stay in power if he could. And that's really real. It's so heavy. It's hard I think it can be hard for everyone to accept that. Number two is, you could tell us what you see in Georgia, but I don't think it's a coincidence that as Georgia expels its two Republican senators, puts in two Democrats, one of whom happens to be black, one of whom happens to be Jewish, that there is this revolt because again,
let me say this though. I don't know if Ossoff is really Jewish because he is a brother for some reason. he got some ATL in him. I'm like, oh. But shout out to my Jewish community, but y'all got a real one over there.
and you have people marching into that Capitol, trespassing, committing crimes, attacking police.
Right.
There were, what some call Black Twitter, right? On Black Twitter, you had people being like, how you gonna attack the police while waving a Blue Lives Matter flag?
Well, the craziest thing is the fact that you can even put attack the police in the same sentence as that, because where I'm standing, when those things happen, even in our neighborhoods, they call in full force. I mean, everything but the SWAT sometimes. So to me, it's crazy that you can even like. And by the way, I want to explain to our listeners, because a lot of our listeners don't really understand. Like right now, we're talking politics, and it's a subject that I try to stay as far away from as I can, because I'm not a politician, and I do understand there's a lot of games that's being played in the mix. But jumping around, politics seems like it should be everybody's business right now. If you black, white, green, yellow, orange, it's like you almost got to sit back and watch what's going on, because you'll get lost, because all these different things are happening in real time. And when you hear impeach, you think that means you're out of here. But this is like the second time they're about to try to impeach this guy. And you're like, okay, well, what happened the first time? And it's just like, I just think there's so many things that the culture doesn't understand about politics, because we never seen anything play out like this. We always used to being on the victimized side. And it's just like, I saw this video that this guy was standing on the porch in D.C. and he was calling them traitors. And he was saying, if this was Black Lives Matters, there would be tanks all up and down Lincoln Boulevard or Philadelphia Boulevard, whatever the boulevard he was saying that they was on. And I agree, because it's just like, when we had our situations and we marched and they came and pepper sprayed and did everything but drop a bomb, and he went to the church and got the Bible and did the whole thing, and they didn't approve of that, that was him inciting something then. It was almost, he was trying to show us that he wasn't scared, and as he shouldn't be. But then you turn around and now you put your goons to run in the Capitol building. But I'm like, okay, so I'm watching and I'm looking, but I'm like, what's the reason for that? Like, what's the reason for the Capitol building? Because if my people were marching, we gonna just stay on the street. We don't want to go in the Capitol, because we don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know what that means. So I want you to explain to me in layman's terms what he's thinking, or what was the reason why they wanted to go to the Capitol building to show their presence.
All good points. By the way, we could talk music.
Right. we talk that later. We talk that later.
I do.
Yeah.
But number one, I always try to deal in facts, right? And I go out in the news. I've had a lot of Trump supporters on. I interview different people. There are legitimate views out across the spectrum. You have to deal with people you disagree with.
Right.
But we're also dealing here with crime, and we're dealing with murder. So we're in a tough spot in terms of how much credence do you give the people who just, what they're really doing is providing now their legal defense, because they are accused of really heinous crimes. As for the disparity, on the beat on MSNBC, we ran these numbers on Thursday. So that was the first day after this incident. And we went through how on a single day in Washington, D.C., during Black Lives Matter protests last year, when nobody breached the Capitol,
right,
nobody was murdered, let alone, the insurrection, Black activists and others, because let's remember, of course, that a lot of these protests, it's a diverse crowd, but it's a Black Lives Matter protest, were arrested at 6 times the rate of the individuals in what we saw Wednesday.
Wow.
So that right there, for anyone who says, well, wait a minute, show me the facts, I don't just want to hear, claims or criticism, that's a fact. And that's the same city with the same type of law enforcement.
Right. It's the Capitol
area.
Right.
Totally different treatment. To say nothing of all the larger trends we have. So I think number one, who controls federal law enforcement in Washington, D.C. right now? The Trump administration, right? There's supposed to be independence. There's supposed to be layers. But at the end of the day, when you go up that line, up the FBI, up the National Guard in D.C., up the feds, you get to people who are appointed by Donald Trump. And you get to the fact that Donald Trump went and spoke that day and told those people we're marching on the Capitol. And then they took him literally. So there's a lot of disparity there that goes through law enforcement. Now, that doesn't mean all officers or anything like that. Indeed, we've been reporting on and showing videos of both areas where they were overwhelmed, areas where they were trying to hold the line, but they may not have had the advancement, the support they would have in other scenarios. And then you go to, and we showed video of this too, we have officers from other incidents where we have activists with their hands up, black activists peacefully assembled in the lawful place, not trespassing, and they're billy club or worse. So we're all living through this. Now, again, it's my job to say, I can't tell you anything about every police officer any more than I could tell you anything about every person, every Jewish person, every black person, every white person, right? But when I put the trends and the statistics together, there's disparate treatment, there's systemic racism. Everyone saw the differences on Wednesday. And then I guess the other question you asked is, what are these people trying to do? Some of them may have wanted to come peacefully assemble, which is their right. But some of them stormed the seat of government, of democracy, demanding a dictatorship, demanding their person be in power, even though he lost the election. That's where we are.
And that sounds like a dictator's behavior. Anytime you and I saw what he was saying about his former, well, after next week, vice president, and it's just like, my question is now: do businessmen make great presidents? Because in business, you can be tough like that. You can really use your muscle when it comes to getting things done. Whether it is pressing somebody or blackmailing them or whatever it is, but it's almost like with this situation, like the recount in Georgia, and it's crazy because my city, my state, has a lot to do with what's going on now. Those 2 Senate seats and the runoff, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But just watching that and just knowing how wholesome of a state this is, like, we don't cheat. You know what I'm saying? We don't even cheat on our taxes. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that's just who we are. Like, we just wholesome, and everybody really got out and voted. Like, I saw it. Our early voting numbers was up on both races. People were really out in full force, and you can feel the energy in the city. And for him to come and just discredit that and say they changed the machines and all these different things, that says a lot about his character. And I'm not here to bash, but I watched a little short snippet of how he was brought up and the things that he went through, and it all makes sense because he was brought up in a way that he feels superior to any situation. And then if he doesn't feel superior, he has excuses, but he was raised that way, so you can't really fault him, but you can't pull the wool over the whole world's eyes at one time. And my question to you is, like, what do other countries think about what we're going through right now? Like, this is America. Like, this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think somebody sit back like, damn, the Capitol building is that easy to get in? Like, it just seems a little flaky.
Well, number one, those people who went in there exposed a real vulnerability for us, because that's a terror target.
Right.
We're going to have an inauguration. We're going to have a State of the Union.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like, unfortunately, at least on that day, you could have a little protest and then have people go inside it and march right through and get in. So that's a vulnerability. That's a national security concern, one. Two, I think America is, like any nation, full of all of its complexity and diversity. And we have much to be proud of. And there's a reason why we're a great world power and why many people echo us from our governmental system, which is still, with all of its flaws, has still held up better than many. There's a reason why, even as you and I talk right now, amidst all this, we have some confidence that the United States military is not just going to swing and take over. The military is stronger and more independent than Donald Trump or his supporters, any of that right now. We had every Secretary of Defense in both parties come up and say that. There are countries where they're not that strong. So that's some good stuff. Then we have some real problems. And I think around the world, they're seeing this. How many lectures have different presidents tried to give other countries about democracy or civil society or whatever? And you saw this. This is an embarrassment. I think it is an international humiliation, both for what happened and reinforced by the fact that what happened was not some isolated fringe element, but was cheered on by the sitting president of the United States. I think it's going to take time for us in the world to even accept that.
I've been on stage before and was like, fuck that, we ain't leaving here. You know what I'm saying? and been arrested for inciting a riot, and that was in a club on a stage. So so imagine getting up there and saying, and it's just like, I say again, we are imperfect leaders, and I think that you have to really look at people's values and their morals and their moral compass and their integrity when it comes to leadership. And everybody shouldn't lead. I think it's great to do business. You can bring a guy in who could take the company from from 0 to 100 real quick, but that doesn't mean that he has the people skills or the leadership skills to lead. And
are you quoting Drake on purpose?
No. That's just what
You said 0 to
100 real quick. But that doesn't mean that they're great leaders. And I just think that, now when you start talking about, and a lot of people beg to differ when you say Barack Obama and these things, but I don't know what the economy did when he was in, but I do know culturally and worldwide, people just saw a calmer place. Like the United States was a place where there was empathy and people felt for the people, and it was just like, okay, we got to look out for one another. We got to take care of one another. And sometimes my uncle always told me, like, all money ain't good money. So the money might come, but the turmoil behind it might not be worth it. And so everybody could beg to differ that when Trump was in office, that the money was flowing. People, it was less poverty and all these different things. But the turmoil behind it and the integrity that we stand on, I think, has been compromised. And when you sit back and look at it, it's just like it's a pandemic. We don't have a handle on this. People's lives have shifted, and people have pivoted so many times trying to find other ways to be productive and to keep their families intact. Then you have, clearly that wasn't handled right. Now you have a whole, if you've not seen it before, we almost had a civil war happen right before our eyes. And people are being slain in the streets, and that's all under your watch. And now, on your way out, you cause all this turmoil, and we all got to sit here and watch your clan and your cult basically, go and barehandedly kill people in one of the safest cities in the world. And we sit there and we watch this and we go, damn, like, and that's why I want to talk to you. It's like, where do we go from here? Because it's just like, now we're going into a new regime. We're still in a pandemic. We're dealing with racism. I mean, it's right there in our face. And now the world, as we know it, is split down the middle for real. Because now we know that there's a possibility that these people can be violent, and that, it doesn't stop there. And when you said in the beginning, when you said terrorist, that was a real term for me, because that means that you'll do anything, even in the dark, to get your point across if you're not happy with how things played out. So, like, where do we go from here as a country?
I mean, Jeezy, I think you're asking the right question. I mean, the short answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, part of what I get to do in my work is I do talk to these people. So I get to talk to people in Congress and activists and leaders and thinkers. So I listen to all of them. I don't know, but I think that because we're in a time of profound conflict, it will be very important for the country to navigate that conflict. So if there are double standards, like we just were discussing earlier, in race and other ways, or political double standards, then you don't have accountability. So I think one of the big questions is, at the narrowest level, what happens on Wednesday? If I tell you there were literally less arrests with a multi-hour crime scene on TV,
right?
Is there pressure to change that? Then when the new government comes in, because that's part of what this was about, this was a criminal act to try to prevent that which the people across the country chose, that which the people of Georgia chose, that which all of this, right? Donald Trump was on the phone a week before this riot.
Yeah.
Trying to use all his power to hit these Georgia officials.
I heard that.
Lie about what happened. He said, just find me. He didn't. I listened to the whole call as part of my job, right? He says, it's 11,000 votes. Just find me the votes.
Right.
That doesn't mean find the votes like they exist. That just means
whatever you got to do.
Cancel democracy, right? And then, so I think there's going to be real questions about what does that accountability look like? And we're living in a time where people have different facts. Now, if you have the same facts and you watch the same video and you say, This person beat an officer to death. Okay? Shouldn't matter whether they were white or black in that instance, right? They beat an officer to death. This person is an identified Trump supporter. This person responded to Trump's tweet saying, come on January 6th, it'll be wild, right? When you add that all up, you have to have a fact, and then what do you do about the fact? We're living in a society now where everything I just said to you, which is on video, which is provable, right? We've got a lot of people who won't acknowledge and see the first fact. They'll say, but that wasn't really what happened. That's fake news. Or there were members of Congress falsely trying to suggest that maybe those weren't these right-wing Trump supporters. But they were.
That wasn't the people that stormed?
Riot.
Wow.
But it was, and the Associated Press today has an exhaustive accounting again, because there's things we don't know. You could say how did the Earth or the universe really start? You weren't there. Who really knows?
Right.
Here's my religious story. Someone else says, well, here's my science story. But we weren't there. That's like a bigger debate, right? But like, here's this person, here's their name, here's their address, here's their social media, here's their support for Trump. AP has a story documenting all that. So we have members of Congress in government. We have other types of media. So if you can't agree on the first fact, Jeezy, right? Then you have no ability to get to accountability. If somebody's sitting in Georgia or wherever and they go, I heard it wasn't Trump supporters. I heard it was people trying to make Trump supporters look bad, right? Which, by the way, is an admission that they know this was indefensible, right? Sometimes Trump was doing things and people would say, well, he's wild, he's brazy, I like him.
Right.
Okay?
He's brazy.
Right, I like it, And now you got people going, wow, that wasn't us.
Right.
Yes, it was.
Right. And it is crazy because he sat there and he went in and I can't lie, like when I look at his supporters and just look at who they are and where they come from, Arkansas, Alabama, it's a deep rooted thing with them, and they love this guy. Like, for what it's worth, they really believe in what he says, what he thinks, and they're fans to from where I'm standing. Like, they're really fans of what he does. And the thing I can say about him is he's straightforward, like he's transparent, like he lets you know the bullshit he's on off the rip. So you got to respect that at least. And I think that's what they respect about him. They feel like he's a fighter. But I wonder now how they feel because he had to come out. He didn't take any accountability, which is not a leader thing to do. But he basically said, you guys were wrong, and this is bad, and we got to all get along. And it's just like, does that tarnish this thing that you built with people, that they feel like you can point a finger? Because even when I listened to his son and he was like, yo, if you don't support my dad, we'll be in your backyard, that sounds like some mafia shit. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they really cut like that, from where I'm standing. And I look at that and I'm like, damn, so now these people have done what they did. Of course it cost some lives, and we send our condolences out there, but it's like, okay, now you get out of this position of leadership and you just tarnish what little bit of legacy you had, and you relinquish your power. And, I got to wonder, I don't know what kind of charges this guy got coming, but it almost feels like, to me, like, shit, that's why he's fighting. He's not fighting for the people. He's fighting to stay in power, because once they pull that bulletproof shield off of him, he's an exempt to anything that comes. You know what I'm saying? That's why I feel like he's scrambling, because it's almost like, shit, if I'm not in power and they start pulling all these things up on me, like, what happens? They put Bill Cosby in jail, man. Not saying the crimes were the same, but your ass go to jail. You know what I'm saying? Playing with these folks. So I just wonder, what that is. Is you think he's trying to protect himself, or you feel like, he really feel like he did a great job, he's the best thing? And I know you can't answer it for him, but I'm just saying in layman's terms for us.
I bet he knows he's in more legal jeopardy today than he was last week.
Got it. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
And he's canny, and he's been his way around a lot of things. I mean, sooner or later, we're going to have to get to some bars, Jeezy, even in the serious portion of this conversation. A lot of people feel like Trump's been getting away with everything to the end. He got away, he keeps getting away. This ain't the first time we've seen someone get away with things for a long time. in the world.
Right.
Mobb Deep, crime pays, but for how long until you reach your downfall? And some people fall early, and some people make it a long way. But for how long?
Right.
He may ultimately face more legal accountability. He certainly will have less power than he does right now.
Okay.
There are legal reasons why he'll have more exposure, because when you're president, the DOJ says you can't even really be indicted. It's not a law, but that's what they say. Right. But when you're not president, you can be. That's why Richard Nixon wanted that pardon. That's why. He didn't want the pardon because he thought, well, I'm the ex-president, I'm good. He wanted the pardon because he was like, I'm not president anymore, and anything could happen.
Right.
So that is one thing. Second, you said something about how do people feel now if they liked his honesty before, they like this and that. Donald Trump is America's tequila.
Tequila.
You have a little bit of it, you might start feeling yourself.
You
have a whole lot of it, you're out of pocket.
Right.
And if you have way more of it, you wake up the next day and you go,
what the hell? What the hell? I had plenty of those nights.
So it's like funny but serious, where I do think there's some people who are going to be ride or die to the end. Fine.
Right.
But there's other people in America who, and this kind of doubles back to what you said about the where do we go, Jeezy? It's like there may be other people who are like, wow, on that bender, America got way louder and angrier and more racist, got way more authoritarian. Now, that happened. That can never be denied. That's wrong. But just like with tequila, some parts of America, some people might say, they now see more than they realized, or they see the hate, but they don't want to be that today.
Right.
So that's incumbent upon them. It's not our job, your job, someone else's job. It's on them to figure out, do they want to say, well, what they said and did and supported on that bender was wrong. They don't want to be about that hate anymore.
Right.
Or there's some people who think, oh, they're going to be low key hateful. Like, well, he says this and that, but he doesn't really mean it.
Right.
Well, this is a country that was founded on slavery and subjugation and had a civil war over it. So you can't just go out talking loose like that and not expect what? Oh, expect people with Confederate flags to march in the Capitol, chasing down officers, harassing this African-American officer, beating another officer to death. Right. This ain't about Blue Lives Matter. Right. This is about all that other stuff. So what do you do with that bender? Some people may stay with him to the end. Other people may go, well, if this is what we were doing, if this is what they stand for, they don't want to be a part of it anymore. And that could be progress too. And I don't mean they can't be Republicans or conservative or pro-life. I don't mean any of that. I work very hard to be fair to all the issues in my work. I mean, Donald Trump has not taken an ounce of responsibility for an insurrection that involved killing. So if you're out there and you're a Trump supporter and your guy won't take responsibility, this is a time to say, not, oh, you can't be a Republican, but do you want to post something? Do you want to say something?
Right.
Or are you also going to just stand and be silent with it?
Right. And
we've learned throughout world history, silence in the face of this.
Right. It's just as good as being guilty. Yeah. It's just like being guilty. Well, that says a lot about him. Man, moving on. Hip hop.
Let's go.
Politics. What's going on? Like, everybody's into it. I'm seeing more support, and shout out to Georgia for putting this Senate runoff. But I have to ask myself, like, could it have been done without the culture of hip hop? I mean, Stacey Abrams showed up on the intro to the verses. Like, she's an OG for that right at this point. Joe Biden called me out to help him, rally the people of Georgia. Same thing with Ossoff and Warnock.
I heard you're going to go from my president is black to my president is old.
That's the remix. But it's crazy because I remember a time when they was trying to ban me on CNN and all these different places. And now it's just like, they realize the influence that we have. And a lot of us are not all the way with it because, of course, some people supported Trump and some people supported who they supported, but that's their personal opinion. But I just want to know, what the common denominator is and just how both worlds can intertwine like that. Because where you have music and then people look at it like, okay, it's hip hop, it's culture, but then when it comes to a time in the world where it has to make a change and things have to change, they have to call on these same people that they demonize or put to the side because of what they represent. But we have our finger on the pulse of the culture, and it has to be voices that they respect and they trust. So when I think about hip hop and politics, tell me what you see.
Yeah. Well, let me put it like this. This is Jeezy, so we got a lot of Jeezy fans listening, I bet.
Right. I would hope so. I hope so.
Let me tell it like this to Jeezy fans. Joe Biden didn't call, his campaign didn't call Jeezy to help Jeezy. The campaign called Jeezy to help Joe Biden.
Correct.
That's how politics works. Right?
Right.
That's how politics works. So you, and I would say even more important than you, the bond you have, the credibility you have with your community, which is in Georgia, with the people who listen to you and follow you, which is international, that's special. And they do their jobs well enough to figure out where that is, and they want that. Now, you have your own ethics and your reasoning for who you support, just like you were vocal in Obama, which you and I talked about on air. But that's important. Don't ever forget that. I'm speaking to the listeners that's hip hop, that's you, that you've discerned who to listen to, and your vote matters. And these politicians, they want that. Then you still make up your own mind. Not everyone's going to. What they're going to get is an audience that they might not get, right?
Right.
It's not like, oh, Jeezy likes this, so I'm definitely doing that. But it might be like, well, let me give it a listen. Let me see what the campaign is. Or in the case of Georgia, ain't usually elections in January.
Right.
Right. So it might be as simple as like, well, you have a following. People are like, if you're not a total nerd and you're living your life and it's COVID and it's a recession. And I ain't talking about Jeezy recession. I'm talking about
that's right. Recession. Bars. Bars.
Then yeah, you might be busy enough to not know. Oh wait, what? We just had an election. No, now there's an extra one. Why? That's weird. So they want you. They want your community. They want hip hop. That's because hip hop has credibility. Hip hop is the lingering, enduring language of a huge part of America, particularly slightly younger America, by which in politics, younger means like under 50, means not seniors.
Right.
And so I think that's important. And it then also goes to the contrast you drew, which is we're coming off very recent history where a lot of politicians in both parties would demonize hip hop, would use hip hop as a stand-in to attack what I would call just Black America, to show they could stand up to that, associated with crime. And yes, we all know there's plenty of songs that are about street life and involve criminal discussion, but there's plenty of songs that don't. So I think it is a contrast. I think the question always in politics would be, all right, what does the community get back for it, right? And how do you keep that going so it's not just around the campaigns or around election time when they need something, but how do you build that up? I do think if you look at today's Democratic Party, it's more diverse than it's ever been in its elected leadership.
Right.
A woman of color is in
Vice President,
the White House, Vice President-elect Harris. That's never happened before. Obama did interesting things with hip hop, although I do think as the first Black president, he was definitely like.
I got love for Obama, but when I didn't get that White House invitation, I don't know.
Let me say this: there were people in that room who haven't sold as much as you.
I mean, it sold. They didn't even make the "My President Is Black" song. Like I was.
So how'd that happen? That was an oversight? Because I know the meeting you're talking about.
I think that my past is real. And that's what I can really say. I'm quite sure when the Secret Service, when they did their work, they're like, okay, this is a real guy. Like this ain't just rap, And I because that's the only thing it could be. Because other than that, I've done everything right. So it would have to be my past. But I had to ask myself, like, damn, like I really got out because and the thing about being in a leadership position, like if you don't have any passion, that's like having a Rolls Royce with no fuel. You know what I mean? Like I got past, so I was passionate about it, and I really got out here and put my credibility on the line because I wasn't supposed to even be concerned with stuff like that. I was already the people's champ, And then to get invited, and I saw some of the people that was there. I'm like, damn, what he do? Like, what he say? I mean, you would have came out better getting Public Enemy or somebody who was really, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, like NWA or something, or like somebody who really stood for this, you know, this culture. And you know, I was just like, damn. And then sometimes you got to really ask yourself, because it's just like sometimes you are not close enough to the ground to actually see what people really gravitate to, or what people really what really has the influence. Because, you know, I pride myself on, you know, and it was a choice for me to evolve, but I also knew that because it's the bottom that's overcrowded. You know what I mean? The top is not crowded. So for me, it's just like, how can I position myself to help my culture? And I go through it a lot now, where people are like, oh, you selling out, you're in the politics. It's like, no, I just know this guy's not right for us, and if I can go talk to this guy and it makes sense, I'm going to side with this, because this is a better thing for us, not me. Like my kids, our future, their future is not the end all be all, but it has to start somewhere. And now we're in a position where we can sit down with these people, because I don't remember, I don't even know who was president when Tupac was doing this thing, but I'm quite sure they didn't sit down with him. It's probably scared to death of him, you know. So for now, I took a lot of time to, you know, evolve, you know, read, you know, get mentors, you know, just better my mindset so that I can be more effective. Because the problem was, I was going into these situations without any knowledge, so I don't know what to ask for anyway. I don't know the questions to ask. I'm just sitting down with these people, and I'm kind of glad I didn't walk in with Obama, because I ain't know what the hell to ask him. But, you know, we're gonna take this flick and you know what I'm saying, chop it up a little bit. But it's just like, now I got real questions, and it's crazy, because had I not been able to get into music and be able to have influence, because I am a real guy and I failed way more times than I succeeded, and to get in a place where I'm at least respected for my integrity and who I am and the music that I made, that got me in a position where I'm able to go even have these conversations, even support anybody. Because you got to think, you know, you go back 10 years or 15 years, taxpayer, I didn't even know what that was. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, now I am a taxpayer. Now I am a staple of my community. Now I am a Grammy nominated recording artist. And yeah, I do have a gangster past, and I have been through some things, but now I can sit down with the president-elect and I can say, hey, listen, I understand what you got going on, but these are our concerns, and I'm speaking for all of us, at least the ones that feel like I feel. But that wouldn't happen without hip-hop. So I got to sit back and look at it and go, ain't that something, hip-hop and politics?
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. And, you know, for those listening, we're talking about specifically when President Obama had a bunch of leaders in hip hop and some R&B at the White House.
Yes, he did.
And then you have Jeezy with all the roots, and My President is Black, and everything
right,
else.
all that. I'm sitting at the crib looking at the picture like.
I think the other thing I'll say about hip hop is this is real life storytelling, even when it has exaggeration and bravado.
Right.
And so if you take like a classical musician, like Mozart contributed a lot, but it's so different. Nobody says, but did Mozart really live that life?
Right.
Was Mozart really out there with those
He's
keys?
about that. Did he really trap? Was he really in the bando?
It doesn't even compute, right? It's not the question. But with hip hop, whether you are, you know, in Atlanta listening to it and you actually are out there and you know some people, or you're just a person, you know, we got hip hop fans all over the world. This culture is global, this Black American culture, and it can be more than that, but it is first and foremost, this Black American culture. It has fans and followers around the world. That's great. Hip hop's never said, as far as I hear it, you tell me if you see it different, but hip hop's never said you have to be this, you have to move here and pretend to be this. That's not real either. Hip hop said, this is real. This is what's going on here. Let me tell you this truth.
Right.
And then the rest of the world can deal with that. And so that's about keeping it real. Like some phrases come and go, right? Like, I don't know if we'll be saying bop in 5 years, right? Changes.
Right.
Keeping it real has always maintained as a phrase in hip hop, because is always important because that's authentic. So you're going to have a different level of connection. I think hip hop has a different level of storytelling, right, than other forms of music that might be awesome, but just doesn't connect in that way. So people really feel you. People really look up to you. People really see. And when you see people evolve, when you see Jay-Z go from being, yes, gangster, trap, selling, all that stuff, which is narrated in his bars, to something else, to being an entrepreneur, to being a business, to then saying, oh, being an entrepreneur is not enough because if somebody else has 51%, then they're still in charge of
now you want ownership. Now you want ownership.
So then he's ownership. Then it's like, oh, I'm a great owner, but am I a good dad? Okay, but how many of us have excelled or worked on one part of life only to try to figure out another? And then to be an artist, seeing what an artist does and what hip hop does that other people don't do is other people in politics, they hide it, they have the PR, they massage it, they run an ad to make it go away. Jay-Z, Beyonce, they shared with us what they were going through. What is more raw in art than that? So I think that's why hip hop, like, yeah, the length of the song may change, the platform may change, the streaming may change, the younger artists are doing it a little different. But boy, when it comes back to, is this real or not? Like, to me, that's the other part of why that overlaps what you're talking about.
Right. And I also think that, you know, and I always use the term as leadership because I don't think people realize even your favorite artists or people that you really support, they've been elected by the people. The people made them who they are. And it's because they're intrigued by the fact that you made it out of dire circumstances. Because even with my music and what I've done with my life, you know, I made a decision that instead of just talking about, you know, what I'm gonna do, I want to lead by example by showing people this is what I'm doing, even if it's not the coolest thing to do at the time. Because I do know when Jay-Z was making this transition, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wanted to be a gangster. You know what I'm saying? Then when he started making his transition, you know, I remember the songs, you know, 30's the new 20 and not wearing baseball jerseys and start wearing button-ups, and people were like, yo, he tripping. But you can't get people out of button-ups right now.
We gotta do the you know what I'm saying? We gotta do the exact bar if we're gonna do it.
But, yeah, you got it. Go ahead. How's it go?
I don't wear jerseys. I'm 30 plus. A pair of jeans and a button.
Up, yeah. And it's just like, but that's hip hop growing up. You know what I'm saying? That's it coming into its own. And I think what makes people gravitate to it is because here you have these chosen people that come out of the slums, the most demonized, you know, places on earth, and then they come up like a shining star and they hold on to that. And some of them make it, and then some of them don't. You know, you look at Pop Smoke, you look at Nipsey Hussle, which is one of my great friends. Like Nipsey was great. Like that was greatness. You know, he was coming into that. But we deal with so many dire circumstances. So when you look at somebody like Jay-Z that came from the Marcy Projects, and you look at the example he set and the way he's evolved in his life, you got to go, damn, like that's the goal. So but you still want to keep your authenticity. So you don't want to get there and then you're watered down. So that's the even harder process. So it's still you keeping it real. You're not losing your roots. You're not losing, you know, who you are as a person. You're not selling out. And I think that's why, you know, the world respects it, and that's why it's the largest genre of music. But at the same time, it's like when you have the people that run the world, and I always say that to myself when I used to have conversations with people, they'd be like, yo, I'd be like, yo, I can go in an arena with 60,000 people, and they're going to recite every word for a whole hour. I don't know many presidents that can do that. Just so we clear. You know what I'm saying? Just so we clear. And I feel that that's a power in its own, and the power lies in how you navigated through life to get to where you are without falling short or getting played out or becoming a statistic or ending up behind bars. And you see these kids like, you know, people talk about Bobby Smyrna like every day. Like you never not hear about this kid. And when you get home, he's going to be bigger than anything you can think of, because when I sit back and listen to how he took his deal, and he was willing to do more time so that his homies can do less time, you know, even though I'm grown and I shouldn't even be thinking about that. I'm going like, yo, this is a real dude. And that makes me respect how he grew up, where he came from, and what he's about. But then on the flip side, you have somebody like myself who's evolving, and I go, damn, like, you know, I gotta still stick to that G code, but I'm looking through a different scope. So I'm trying to get farther. So cats like him, when he come home and they see where a person like myself is at, 15 years in the game and that far removed. I know it's crazy for my homies to see me on my own talk show, or even doing a podcast, or even sitting down with Joe Biden, or even because it's just like, yo, Jeezy was just on the block with us. But that's what makes it real. So when I see him making moves like that and doing the things that he do, just look at the credibility that he has. So why if he comes out and let's just say, I don't think he would be into politics, off the rip. But let's just say, somebody wants to sit down with him that needs that influence. He got millions and millions of kids sitting, waiting on his every word because they believe him. You know what I'm saying? They believe what he went through was real, and they know he sat in that jail cell all that time. And he kept it solid. He ain't complained one time. And when he gets out, they're gonna give him their ears. And I think that's what hip hop is. And it's sad to say, the harder it is for you, the more believable you are. And I think that's what the politicians see. They sit back and they go, okay, he's from where all these things are going on. He understands it. How can we get involved? And if you look at the layer going back to the Senate runoff of the people that they enlisted and the people that they came and sat with, is more who's a little more polished and refined that we can sit down and talk to, who's not going to spin this left or right. And that would be a Jeezy. That would be a T.I. That would be a Killer Mike. You know what I'm saying? Because we have enough knowledge to know, okay, well, all right, I get it. Okay, this is the way I'm going to go about it. And it's crazy to see, hip-hop and politics come together. I remember one thing, I was doing this campaign with the Atlanta Hawks, and so they did a jersey for me and everything. This is a real Atlanta jersey. And I came out and they had a snowman on it. And I sat there for a minute and thought to myself, like, damn.
Do they know what it means?
I would imagine so, but like when I was first, I would have never thought that I would be on an Atlanta Hawks jersey. Like, that don't make sense to me.
But with the snowman.
It's with the snowman, like a real snowman emblem, but it just shows you the power of hip hop, And so let me ask you, like, as far as your favorite artists, who do you feel like understand what's going on in the world and speak on it in a respectful way that you respect where they're coming from? I love Kendrick and what he does and what he says. He knows how to go away and come back, but he always has something real to say. So that would be my pick.
Well, first of all, we're here. Shout out to Jeezy. I got to tell you, to mention, I do this show, Nevuary Radio on Apple Music Hits.
Yes, sir.
You've been on the beat. I got to get you on Nevuary someday.
I'm there.
Great.
I'm pulling up.
But I was just thinking, just to give one Jeezy example, and then I'll do others.
Okay.
But I was just playing on there, I Do.
Okay.
With you and Jay-Z and Andre.
Andre 3000, yeah.
One of those classic tracks that holds up so well.
Right.
And it overlaps to some of what we're talking about, where it's love and commitment and how do those work in life.
Wow.
And it seemed like you and Jay started talking about that, where I do. And it feels like marriage, but you flip it to married to the game.
Married to the streets. Yeah, right.
And that loyalty. But then by the end, Andre takes it back to loving a woman and being a real marriage.
Right. I think that's what he was talking about, because he was talking about a lot. You got to break Andre bars down, because I remember when I first heard the verse, I was like, damn, he snapped.
So were you guys all together for that, or you were trading verses?
No, well, it was crazy because I sent the song to, and it's crazy because I ran in three's like a unicorn. Andre 3000 people, that's what we talk about. The other half of the almighty outcast. Andre 3000 like a unicorn. You might see him in a strip club in the corner minding his business. You might see him walking down Rodeo in some cowboy boots. Like he just Andre. And I ran into Andre coming out of a hotel in LA that I was staying at the hotel for a couple of days. I had a lot of press stuff to do. And when I came downstairs, I ran into him the same place I saw him at like 6 months before that. I was coming out of the elevator. He was going up. I said, yo, Dre, what's going on? Jeez, what's good, baby? I said, yeah, you out here working? He's like, yeah. I said, yo, so listen, I got this 10th anniversary show coming up, and I want you to perform with me. And, I want him to come out and do what I do. And he was like, man, Atlanta hadn't seen Andre for like 10 years. He's like, man, let me think about it. And he called me out the blue. He's like, yo, my homie's telling me this is something I really need to be at. And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be in the Fox Theater. It's gonna be crazy. He's like, I'm there. So he called me. He's like, what should I wear? And I was like, you know, that Braves jersey, man. People see you in that Braves jersey, they know you mean business. He's like, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm gonna do. So long story short, we backstage. We getting ready to, like, 3 is here. He comes back in. You know, the whole show's got cordless mics. He wants a mic with a cord. I'm like, yo, get him a mic with a cord. It's 3,000. And when I tell you, 3 came out there to do his verse for I Do. 3 had on a denim outfit with some cowboy boots. I was just looking at him like, yo, what happened to the Atlanta Braves jersey? And, you know, but he killed it, and it was crazy for him to come out. So shout out to 3 for that. And we got a lot of love for 3, man, because 3's solid. You know, he's a real Atlanta, like he's the pulse of Atlanta when it comes to that, because what he did by pushing the barriers and what he did musically, him and Big Boy is you know, undeniable. But to answer your question about the record, is I had I called 3 around that time and when I saw him the first time in the hotel and was like, yo, I need you to get on this record, and he was just like, yo, send it to me. So a couple months went by and he just sent it back, and I'm just like, yo, this is crazy.
Wow, he just sends that right back like that.
He sent it back in like a couple months, so I thought he forgot about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he sent it back in the car, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yo, I gotta get Jay-Z on this record. So I called Jay and I'm like, yo, I got this record, man, Me, You, and 3,000. He's like, yo, it's crazy. I was like, yo, it's one of them ones. But anybody with some sense know. I'm just gonna say this. You don't get on no 3 song with 3,000 without hearing his verse first. So Jay was like, yeah, send it, but send his verse too. Send his verse too. So I sent the record, Jay knocked it out, and I was this close to getting the video, man. I was this close to getting the video. And I got on the phone with Dre, and he just like, Jeezy, I love you, but I don't feel like doing videos right now, and I just had to respect it. But I think it made it more classic. And shout out to Jay-Z, and Andre 3000 for getting on there. It was just crazy.
I mean,
I saw a picture yesterday on Instagram with us 3 in the picture. I never know we all 3 took a picture together. So
oh, really?
It's crazy.
Yeah. Graham's funny for that. I'm sure for you, because you probably had moments in your career where you were so busy you didn't know which thing was being memorialized. I mean, right. I know what you mean of the video. It's funny. Drake has a video where Lil Wayne, I believe, was unavailable because I think he was incarcerated, but they wanted to make the video, and so they had a thing where, like, they basically had someone in a mask looking sort of like Lil Wayne, you know, and that's how they, like, covered it.
Right.
But to your point, like, yeah, I mean, nowadays, especially with the younger generation, like, whatever, people can find good music. Right. Anyone listening, if you don't know, I do, for whatever reason, go put it on when the Jeezy podcast is over. Yeah, it is. But the videos sometimes make a difference. Like, I know as a fan, if there was a video with you, Jay, and 3 Stacks, I'd be watching that, you know, because I like videos, they just take you into the song, and sometimes in a deeper way.
Yo, me and Jay, we got a record called Seen It All. And for those you don't know, I probably have more songs with Jay-Z than he got with Biggie Smalls, Notorious Big, which is crazy. We had this song Seen It All, so it had a Chinese sample from a movie, so it took us, you know, almost a year to get the sample cleared. I finally got the sample cleared, and me and Jay listened to the record, and he says, yeah, we got to shoot a video for this. We're going to go down to Miami. I'm going to call Puff. We're going to have the Jets back to back to back. Then we're going to go to Live, take it over. Then we're going to take over the Fountain Blue. It's going to be crazy. Yo, I'm hyped. I'm like, oh, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, and man, I don't know what happened. I got busy, he got busy, and I kind of got off of it. And we never shot the video, but I just had to sit back and think, like, we sitting on his jet. We on Jay's jet, we flying somewhere. And he like, yo, we gonna shoot the video, Jets back to back, you know what I mean? We gonna call Puff, it's gonna be crazy. And I'm like, damn. He like, we're gonna take over Fountain Blue. And this one was like, Live was like the club. He's like, we're gonna go to Live, shut it down, get the big, I forget what they call the Ace of Spade bottles that's almost the size of a human being. Like, we're gonna get like 10 of those. It's gonna be crazy. And every time I think about it, I'm gonna tell this is my message to my people out there. I like to get a message to them every time that I do this podcast. Listen, it's about the now, baby. Don't ever wait. Don't take your time. Be aggressive. Be relentless, and don't blink. If you want to do something, say, yeah, let's do it tomorrow. I'll tell you what. You know what I'm saying? Don't wait till next week, next month. None of that, man. And anytime I've done that, it hasn't worked out for me. So just stay relentless. And
I'll double down on that and say, think about the last big thing you did before COVID and the lockdowns. And think about, it might have felt like random at the time. It might have been just brunch with your mom, might have been dinner with a friend, might have been bigger, whatever it was. Think how valuable it would be now to go, no mask, no BS, no wait, and be out. And you didn't know, we couldn't have known, this is humanity. We didn't know that night was the last one. Maybe you heard something coming, this and that, but you know what I mean? Like, whether it's on a personal scale, because we're only but lucky enough to wake up each day, or on a global scale, like, yeah, you got to do it. I mean, before we wrap up, I'll answer the other question you said. So for me, artists who like are really like that I'm jamming to,
right?
Like holistically, Jay-Z is definitely one of my number ones. It's funny, I guess if I said number one's plural, I'm already cheating. But like Jay-Z's like for me, everything. You know?
There you go.
And I think it's interesting because he's great on understanding how the world works in every way, in every life stage. And he can be political, although I don't think he's thought of as much as a conscious rapper. He himself has alluded to that. I think when you say, Kendrick, Mos Def.
Yes.
Andre for just the clever, amazing, mind-bending style. Kanye, I always like, because Kanye is just way out of the box. So whether you agree or not, like if you put the time in, particularly over how his albums have evolved, he's got almost a fully different rap sound on every album. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'll give you like just one example when we think about studying the poetry of it. If you want, I pulled up
for sure.
here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
You remember Mos Def Mathematics?
Mos Def Mathematics.
Mathematics.
This is a song.
This is over 20 years old.
Okay,
So
I'm quite sure when you say the lyrics, I'll know it.
We talk about what can we learn from this poetry.
Okay.
Yo, it's one universal law, but two sides to every story. 3 strikes, you be in for life, mandatory. 4 MCs murdered in the last 4 years. I ain't trying to be the 5th. The millennium is here. It's 6 million ways to die from the 7 deadly thrills. 8-year-olds getting found with 9 mils. It's 10 p.m. Where'd your seeds at? What's the deal? He on the hill puffing krill to keep their belly filled. Light in the ass with heavy steel. Sights on the pretty shit in life. Young soldiers trying to earn their next stripe. When the average minimum wage is $5.15, you best believe you got to find new ground to get cream. The white unemployment rate, well, it's more than nearly triple for black. So frontliners got their gun in your back, bubble and crack, jewel theft and robbery to combat poverty and end up in the global jail economy. Stiffer stipulations attached to each sentence, budget cutbacks, but increased police presence. And even if you get out of prison, still living, join the other 5 million under state supervision. This is business, no faces, just lines and statistics from your phone, your zip code, to your SSI digits. The system break man, child, and women into figures, 2 columns for who is and who ain't blank. Numbers is hardly real, and they never have feelings, but you push too hard, even numbers got limits. Why did one straw break the camel's back? Here's the secret. The million other straws underneath it, it's all mathematics.
Wow. Bars. Bars. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I want to thank my guest today, man. Good friend of mine and always keeping it 100. And we appreciate everything you do out there, brother, and everything you're about and everything you stand for. And, you know, keep pushing and supporting the culture, man. We see you. Every time you drop those videos and you shout one of us out, everybody going crazy. You know what I'm saying? I
appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And like what your poetry, what Mos Def, like anyone listening to this, go put that on.
Yeah.
It's sad. The only thing is the parts of it that are still too relevant today are the parts we all got to work on. That's what I think.
Right.
That was 20 plus years ago. Thank you, Jeezy.
Already, brother. Hey, listen, we here. Happy New Year. And as always, work in progress. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all give it up for Ari Melber. I'm waiting to get on that new show too, my brother. We here, man. Appreciate you as always, brother.